I know the title of this video is a little bit extreme, but this really is, in my opinion, the most important chart in crypto because it really does represent, it tells you everything you need to know about the market, right? So right now it's measuring for net P&L, realized P&L adjusted for market cap. And what it's showing you here is that, we're at a capitulation bottom. If you look at the June 2022 numbers, Bitcoin had more realized losses within a short 14-day trailing period than any other period, any short period in Bitcoin's history ever. Like, that was the largest capitulation spike ever in Bitcoin's history. Now, we had more drawn out bottoms, like the 2015 bottom in Bitcoin was a little bit more drawn out. And, capitulation is a component of time, right? I mean, this is pretty obvious, right? I mean, it's not just how absolutely low does the price go, but how long does it stay low, and how long does it, hang out at the lows? And the more time it spends at the lows, obviously you have more marginal selling at that level, and, the price will, realistically stay at those levels, without some type of catalyst, as long as the marginal seller is willing to sell there. Or in other words, as long as the people are willing to capitulate at the capitulation lows, the market will generally stay there until the capitulation is complete. And then you have, market participants left who generally, aren't willing to sell at that level. And then in that scenario, the market, in order to generate liquidity, will typically, move to the upside in search of liquidity, especially in a market like Bitcoin, right, where you have supply and demand dynamics that are skewed to the upside, right? We have to keep that in mind, right? You can't talk about this without talking about Bitcoin supply and demand. Bitcoin has very inelastic supply, and demand is relatively unpredictable and oscillates very erratically. But generally what you're seeing when you see these capitulation environments is you're seeing people, who are willing to capitulate, and then coins are transferred from people who aren't willing, or from people who are willing to sell at those levels to people who are not willing to sell at those levels until the capitulation is complete. And the coins are largely held by people who are not willing to capitulate or sell at those levels. And again, in order for the market to generate liquidity, the easiest path for it to generate liquidity, remember, the market is like water, right? It will take the path of least resistance. So in that scenario, you have a bunch of people holding coins who aren't willing to sell at a current level. Well, those people, maybe they're not willing to sell at, the level the price is currently at, where other people are capitulating. But there is a certain price where some of those sellers will be, convinced to become sellers. That's very obvious, right? I mean, if price, we're right now Bitcoin's price is roughly at 20,000. If suddenly I'm recording another video and price is at 200,000, I think a lot of those strong-handed hodlers who were not willing to sell at 20K, are starting to take a little bit of profit, right? These people do have real lives, so at some point they want to take profits and maybe pay their taxes, maybe pay down real estate, maybe put their kids through school. You can't do that stuff with Bitcoin right now. So again, it kind of getting off topic, but the idea is that as price drives higher in search of liquidity, as price rises, it will convince more and more people to step off the sidelines, come into the market, and step in as sellers. And that's how you generate liquidity, right? And this is why Bitcoin's price moves in the way it does, right? It has these parabolic bursts. Generally you see coins getting, you have a period of downtrend that starts to escalate until it reaches capitulation, and then you see coins transferred from weak hands to strong hands, And then because the strong hands are, not willing to sell until much higher prices, price runs up to the level in which those strong hands are now willing to part with their coins. And that, they generally end up distributing into a parabolic rally. Of course, they're not going to catch the absolute top, right? Things can get crazy and go, beyond the point where they're distributing. But the idea is that, the further price goes, the more willing sellers are willing to step into the market and to provide liquidity. So it's a different way to think about the market, right? If you think about the market in that type of concept, you're generally going to avoid thinking like the herd, right? These people who, obviously, if you have the stomach to not capitulate during these times, and it's very appropriate to make this video when I'm making it right now, when we're in it, right? Because while we're in it, you can really feel what it feels like, right? It's a totally different thing than if you're, looking at this chart at the capitulation metrics in a period of relative calm in the market where nothing, it's not necessarily parabolic or capitulating. It's just kind of, maybe consolidating and nothing special, right? You can intellectually study this, but it's a different thing entirely to go through it and to experience it. And right now we're going through it, and we're going through that capitulation phase, and you can really feel what it feels like. So, again, the point is that obviously if, people are willing to hold on to their coins through that capitulation, those are the type of entities or players who are, can't really be described as thinking like the herd, right? And if you can, utilize these concepts and some of the liquidity concepts I mentioned before, that might help, to, align you with some of the ways that smart money is thinking, rather than, what people are thinking on Twitter and what the herd is doing, really. Now, it's again, capitulation is one of those things where, it really does feel like the bottom is falling out, right? Like you feel like people right now honestly think that like the entire banking system is going to collapse, right? Or that the Bitcoin network itself will fail. And I think it's helpful to like journal during these periods because that's never going to change, right? Like there will be another capitulation environment in the future, just like the one we're seeing today, or just like the one we're seeing now. It will happen again. I mean, it's just market cycles. So, it's really helpful if you want to make use of this current phase in the cycle. It would be really, really, really helpful to journal your experiences. And then when the market cycle returns to this phase, you can go back to the journal and, see how you were feeling during that time. That's something that has helped me monumentally. And then going back and reading these journal entries, I can, first of all, it conjures up the emotion right away. So you can go right back to that place and remember what it felt like. The other thing is that, you do realize that these emotions never fade, right? You're going to feel the same emotion, but somehow you create like a sense of distance between yourself and the emotion. And you can feel it, but it feels further away. It doesn't feel so pressing. And I think that's the major benefit of journaling. Really, the benefits of journaling are, you should journal all the time, but you really want to journal during periods of extreme market behavior, right? Where, like, for example, the RSI read on the weekly got to the most extreme level it's ever gotten to. We had one of the shortest bursts of volatility ever going into the capitulation in June 2022. So we're at market extremes. This is a very good time to journal. And conversely, if once things are going absolutely parabolic, if we get like another 2017, that's when you see people saying, new paradigm, and it will get just as equally crazy to the other side. So it's important to keep that in mind. Now, obviously, we're not in that phase of the market right now, but that phase of the market will come too. The market is cyclical, right? Especially Bitcoin. It moves on these 4-year cycles. Very, very predictable, almost like a algorithmic code in that sense. But anyway, I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, please make sure to leave a subscribe on the video below, and I'll catch you guys in the next upload.